Okay, I want you to try a little experiment with me to kick things off. Just visualize your phone screen right now. If you're not driving, maybe close your eyes for a second and just picture that glowing rectangle. What do you see?
Chaos. Just absolute chaos.
Right, it's a total barrage. You've got these, red breaking news banners flashing at the top.
Yeah.
You've got stock tickers scrolling across the bottom so fast you can't actually read them. You've got tweets or, I guess, X posts, whatever we're calling them now, it's just flying by.
Yeah.
It's frantic.
It is the very definition of information overload.
Exactly. And in the world we're talking about today, that screen, that energy, that's the hair.
Ah, yes, the hair.
Fast, reactive, and honestly pretty exhausting. But then right in the middle of all our research, we found something that just completely rejects that whole idea.
A turtle.
A turtle, which is, I have to say, not the first image that comes to my mind when I think about cutting-edge media analysis.
Yeah.
You think of a lightning bolt or, a globe spinning out of control. Right. It feels so counterintuitive. I mean, in a world that is completely obsessed with speed, who can post the hot take first, who breaks the story 5 seconds faster, a turtle feels like it's admitting defeat, like it's saying, we're slow.
But that's the provocation, isn't it?
That is exactly why we're dedicating this whole deep dive to it.
We are talking about a platform called Adal Media Highlight. And like you said, they are not trying to win a sprint. They're playing a completely different game.
Yeah, we've got a whole stack of their material here, mostly their executive summary and this core philosophy document they call The Turtle's Vision. And honestly, the more I read it, the more I started to think that maybe the hair approach isn't just annoying. It might actually be like breaking our brains a little bit.
I think breaking is the right word. What makes them so interesting is they position themselves as an independent analytical platform. But they aren't just, grabbing headlines to save you a click. They claim to be reinterpreting politics, society, the economy, culture.
That word reinterpret, that does a lot of heavy lifting, doesn't it?
Yeah. It really does. It implies that the first interpretation, the one you get 5 minutes after something happens, is probably wrong. Or at least it's incomplete.
Sure.
Adal is on this mission to address, and I'm quoting here, issues of concerns for public, institutions, and researchers. So they're trying to bridge that gap between someone just, doom scrolling and an academic who needs hard data.
So today we're going to unpack this whole turtle vision. We'll look at their 4 pillars of analysis, which, by the way, includes some really dense stuff on AI and digital narratives that we need to get into. And we're going to figure out who this is actually for. Because if they're right, then slow and steady might be the only way to really understand what's going on.
And understand is the key word there. We are absolutely drowning in knowing things, but we're starving for understanding.
Okay, so let's start with the logo itself, the turtle. The source material makes a really big deal out of the symbolism. This isn't just some cute mascot they found.
No, it's basically a manifesto in a shell. They explicitly list 3 attributes for why they chose it: wisdom, steadiness, and long-term vision.
Let's break those down. Wisdom is one of those words that gets thrown around a lot. How are they defining wisdom as different from just news?
Well, think about the hair model again. The hair gives you information.
Right.
Information is knowing a stock dropped 5% or a politician made some gaffe. It's data. Wisdom is knowing why it matters. It's the context that led to that moment and, what it might mean for the next 10 years.
So information is the what and wisdom is this so what.
Exactly. They say they want to reinterpret events. And that implies that the fast knee-jerk reaction, the thing that gets all the clicks, is often stripping away the wisdom to get to the shock value.
Okay, and then there's steadiness. That's the second one. This really jumped out at me because the news cycle is the complete opposite of steady. It's volatile by design.
It is, and that volatility creates anxiety. If you're constantly reacting to the breaking news banner, you feel like the world is just spinning out of control. By using the turtle, by emphasizing steadiness, Adal is signaling that they're not going to get swept up in the hype. They're looking for solid ground.
It's just funny because usually steady in media means boring, but here they're actually pitching it as a feature, not a bug.
Well, in a chaotic system, stability is a premium product. If you're a researcher or, a decision maker, you don't want hype. You want a steady hand.
And the third one, long-term vision. That's the perfect antidote to the 24-hour cycle.
Precisely. If you're looking at the horizon, you're not distracted by every little bump in the road. The hare is obsessed with now. The turtle is all about the future.
In the past, which I guess we'll get to when we talk about memory, but they back this all up with their methodology. The source describes their output with these 2 words: depth and clarity. I have to be the skeptic for a second. Depth and clarity are often enemies.
You mean you've read too many academic papers that are deep but completely unreadable?
Exactly that. Or I've read tweet threads that are super clear but have the depth of a puddle. It is so hard to do both.
It's probably the hardest thing in communication. But Adel claims to be grounded in rigorous research and credible testimony. That covers the depth part. The clarity, I think, comes from how they frame it. They're writing for humans who need to make sense of a region, not for robots.
There's another phrase in here about their scope that caught my eye. Multilingual vision.
Yes, that is crucial.
It suggests they aren't just, sitting in a bubble translating the New York Times, right?
Right. If you're going to analyze a region and the source talks about shaping the region's future, you simply can't do that through a single linguistic lens. A multilingual vision means they're looking at sources, testimonies, cultural nuances, all of it, across language barriers.
That seems like such a massive blind spot for so much of the media. If you only speak English, you're only getting the English version of the story.
Exactly. You miss the internal debate. You miss the idioms, the nuance. By stating this explicitly, Adal is saying, we're listening to everyone, not just the people who speak one language. It adds another layer of that depth they're promising.
Okay, so we got the philosophy, the turtle, wisdom, steadiness, long-term vision. Now let's get into the machinery. What are they actually analyzing? The source lays out these 4 core pillars. And the first one, it sounds like it was written by a futurist.
It does sound a bit sci-fi, yeah. Geopolitical transformations and digital narratives.
Let's unpack that. Geopolitical transformations, that big picture stuff, borders, alliances, power shifts. Okay, we get that. But digital narratives, that feels new.
This is where Adal proves they aren't stuck in the past. The source gives us a very specific clue here. It mentions a focus on social media and, quote, the AI approach line of thinking.
The AI approach line of thinking, I circled that 3 times in my notes. What does that actually mean in practice?
It means they're not just using AI as a tool to, say, help write articles. It means they are analyzing AI as a force that is actively shaping reality.
So they're analyzing the algorithm itself.
In a sense, yes. Think about it. In the modern world, you can't separate a political event, an election, a protest, whatever, from the digital machinery that delivers that news to you. If Adal is analyzing digital narratives, they're looking at how a story spreads. Who's telling it? Is it organic? Is it being amplified by bots? Is it an AI-generated deepfake?
So they're looking at the pipe, not just the water flowing through it.
Exactly. You can't just report on the event anymore. You have to report on the digital battleground that surrounds the event. That's the digital narrative. And by specifically mentioning the AI approach, they're showing they know this machinery is getting automated. We're moving into an era where narratives are literally constructed by code.
That connects right back to the issues of concerns from the intro.
Mm-hmm.
Because for a lot of people, public, institutions, all of us, that is the biggest source of anxiety right now. We don't know what's real anymore.
Precisely. If you're a researcher or a policymaker, your absolute worst nightmare is acting on bad intelligence. You're worried about how narratives are being manipulated. So by making this a core pillar, Adal is basically saying, we aren't just watching the actors on the stage, we're watching the technology that built the stage.
It's a very modern lens for a turtle, isn't it? You'd think a turtle would be old-fashioned, ignoring all the tech, but this is pretty cutting edge.
Well, that's the paradox. To have a long-term vision today, you have to understand technology. If you ignore AI and social media, you are blind to the biggest forces shaping the future. You're not a wise turtle then. You're just hiding in your shell.
Fair point. Okay, let's move to the second pillar. They pivot from this, high-tech, abstract digital world to something that feels way more grounded.
Economy linked to daily life.
I really appreciate that phrasing, linked to daily life, because usually economic news is linked to Wall Street.
It's a very intentional distinction. Usually when we read financial news, we get the NASDAQ, the FTSE, the price of a barrel of oil.
Abstract numbers, macro stuff, things that feel very, very far away from my kitchen table.
Right. And sure, that's important for traders. But it doesn't tell you why your grocery bill just went up 20%. By framing it as economy linked to daily life, Adal is signaling they want to connect the dots between those big numbers and the lived experience of actual people.
It's humanizing the data.
It is, and it fits right in with their goal of providing clarity. It's much clearer to explain an economic trend through the lens of a family's budget or a small business owner's problems than it is to just show a chart of inflation rates.
It makes it much more relevant to that public audience they want to reach. Not everyone's an economist, but everyone is in the economy.
And this humanizing aspect leads us right into the fourth pillar. So we've had geopolitics and tech, we've had the economy, and finally, cultural memory.
This one stopped me in my tracks.
Oh.
Cultural memory. You just don't see that listed next to AI and geopolitics in a media platform's mission statement. It feels almost poetic.
It is rare, but if you connect it back to the whole turtle vision, it makes perfect sense.
How so?
Well, think about long-term vision. You can't see the future if you've forgotten the past.
That's a nice saying, but how does that actually apply to news analysis?
Cultural memory isn't just history dates in a textbook. It's identity. It's the stories a society tells itself about who it is. It's the traditions, the traumas, the triumphs that shape how people react to things happening right now.
Ah, okay. So if you're looking at a geopolitical transformation, which is pillar one,
Mm-hmm.
you can't really get it unless you understand the cultural memory pillar for the people involved.
Bingo. Let's say there's a border dispute. The hair media says, troops moved to border. The turtle asks, okay, but what happened at this border 50 years ago? What's the story people tell about this mountain range? What is the memory being triggered by this troop movement? If you ignore that, you're just moving pieces on a map. You're missing the human element, the why.
It really feels like these pillars are designed to interact. They're not separate columns.
Oh, they're absolutely a system.
So let's trace it. An event happens. Adal looks at the geopolitics, the power dynamics. They analyze the digital narrative, how it's being spun online. They look at the economy, how it hits people's wallets. And they ground it all in cultural memory, how it fits into the bigger story.
That is the synthesis they're promising. The source says their goal is to deliver content that connects everyday events to broader contexts. That's the recipe right there.
It's ambitious. I mean, that is a lot of work for a single report.
It is very ambitious. It
Yeah.
requires that rigorous research they promised. You can't just wing that kind of analysis. You can't ask an AI to write it for you. Well, not yet anyway. It requires real human insight.
So who is this all for?
Yeah.
We sort of hinted at it, but the source gives us a specific breakdown of their target audience, and it's kind of an eclectic mix.
It is. They list 4 distinct groups: youth, researchers, diaspora communities, and decision makers.
Okay, let's take those one by one. Youth, the future generation. My cynical brain immediately says the youth want TikToks. They want 15-second videos. Why would they want the turtle?
That's the stereotype, for sure. But I think there's a growing hunger among younger people for actual substance. They're the ones being most bombarded by the hair, the noise, the doom scrolling, the algorithmic rage bait. A platform offering clarity and objective analysis could be a refuge. Plus, they're the ones who will inherit the future Adal is trying to analyze. They have the most at stake.
That's true. They have to live in the house that's being built today. Okay, then you have researchers. That was pretty obvious.
Yes, they need the rigorous research and credible testimony. They need sources they can actually cite.
And then diaspora communities.
Mm-hmm.
This was really interesting. People living outside the region, but who are still deeply connected to it.
Think about their position. You're physically distant, but you're emotionally and culturally connected. You're relying on digital media to know what's happening back home. But that same media is full of noise and polarization.
So you're sitting in, I don't know, London or New York, checking your phone, and you don't know if what you're seeing is real or if it's just panic.
Exactly. So for them, Adal becomes a bridge, a trusted reference, as the source puts it. If you're in the diaspora, you want to know the truth about what's going on, not just the rumors. You want that steadiness.
And finally, decision makers, the people actually shaping policy.
They need the long-term vision more than anyone. A decision maker can't afford to be purely reactive. They need to understand the AI approach, how their policies will be spun online. They need to understand cultural memory so they don't step on historical landmines. They need that synthesis.
The source says Adal wants to be a trusted reference for all these groups,
Mm.
and it uses 3 words to describe its content: clear, deep, and objective.
Objective is the heavy lifter there. In today's world, promising objectivity is a bold stance. It implies they aren't taking a side in the fight, but are analyzing the mechanisms of the fight.
Like a biologist watching an ecosystem, not a fan cheering for one team.
Exactly. And that brings us right back to the turtle. A turtle is an observer. It's grounded. It's not running around trying to pick a fight. It's just moving forward, steadily watching everything.
Progressing steadily, as the text says.
It's a powerful idea. Progressing steadily. It implies that understanding isn't a lightning bolt of insight. It's a journey. You don't get wise from one tweet. You get wise by consistently, steadily engaging with deep analysis over time.
It really carves out a distinct lane for them. We started this whole conversation talking about how weird it was to see a turtle in a media kit. But now, after all this, it feels necessary.
It feels like a corrective, doesn't it? We've built this information ecosystem that is all accelerator and no steering wheel. Adal Media Highlight is trying to build a steering wheel, or at least some good brakes so we can look at the map.
It's about the pace of digestion. We consume so much information, but how much do we actually digest? How much becomes memory?
That's the key. They want to offer audiences a deeper understanding of the transformations shaping the region's future. You can't do that if you're sprinting. You just miss too much. You miss the patterns. They're focused on the line that connects the dots.
It's refreshing. It's a reminder that we have a choice in how we consume information. We don't have to be the hare. We don't have to live with that constant low-level panic.
We can choose the turtle vision. We can choose depth.
So this is where we usually wrap things up. We've looked at the symbolism, the wisdom and steadiness of the turtle. We've looked at the methodology reinterpreting news through rigorous research. We've broken down those 4 pillars: geopolitics, digital narratives, economy, and cultural memory. And we've seen who they're trying to reach.
It's a really comprehensive package. And it directly challenges that status quo of fast is best.
It really does.
Yeah.
And it leaves me with this one thought. We spend so much of our lives just trying to keep up,
Right.
trying to stay current, trying not to miss out. But listening to this, looking at Adal's mission, it makes me wonder if keeping up is actually the problem.
I think you're onto something. If you're always running, you never actually see where you are.
So here's the question I want to leave you with today. It's a bit of a challenge. Adal Media Highlight is betting that cultural memory and long-term vision are more valuable than speed.
A pretty safe bet, historically speaking.
So try this for the next week. What if you stopped consuming news for speed? If you stopped caring about knowing it first and started consuming it for cultural memory and wisdom? How would that change the way you understand your own daily life? Would you feel less anxious? Would you maybe make better decisions?
Would you finally be able to see where you're actually going?
Exactly. Maybe it's time we all slow down a little bit, progress steadily.
Like the turtle.
Like the turtle. Thanks for diving in with us today.
A pleasure as always.
Catch you on the next one. Stay steady.